Hello and welcome! This slidecast is an overview on what I noticed in Algivandi's Monstrorum Historia. I go into a little bit of detail on why I noticed things, and I try to apply meaning to what I noticed, to varying degrees of success. As I look through the pages, a recurring question keeps coming to mind. What is Algivandi's definition of a monster? Many of these entries don't appear very monstrous, but then again, the text is in Latin, so my understanding comes through from poor Google translations and what I can apply from images. Due to the large size of this file, most of this slidecast focuses on the beginning of the text and the end of the text, where I found it easiest to navigate. I found myself having to look at the pages from a distance, skimming through multiple pages at once. This method drew my eye to highly contrasting images, like the title page. I continually found contemporary references, and my artistic eye was drawn to the details in the illustrations. Here on the title page, I noticed Lady Justice holding her scales, in addition to the crown imagery used on this page, as well as on multiple others. The dark cross-hatching is what drew my eye to this page originally. It's an interesting use of shading, and I was wondering if it had anything to do with the printing format. As I skimmed through the opening and closing pages of this text, a clear form of organization in chapters became apparent. The first section covers bipedal forms or human forms. Most of them are hair-covered or have deformities. Again, they don't seem very monstrous-like. The next portion of the text seems to demonstrate civilizations or rituals. In the image I've included on this slide, you can see the finger of this man is missing, implying it may have been eaten. I translated one of the later chapter titles to The Greatest History of All Animals. In an attempt to answer my opening question, how does Algivandi define monstrous, I'm drawn to this image. The ornate pattern of her dress and the item she's holding that I interpreted at first as instruments, although I'm not too sure about that, they seem to imply some degree of aristocracy, which contradicts my definition of a monster. But in this text, monsters aren't depicted as evil or uncivilized in the ways that many other stories depict them. As mentioned earlier, I looked through a lot of this text in the mindset of an artist. Immediately, I was drawn to the use of the contrapposto pose that a lot of the bipedal figure is demonstrated. I've included this bird-like creature as well because it's reminiscent of Egyptian art style, especially the profile view of the face, and the ornate decoration on its head reminds me of an Egyptian god of sorts. While these aspects indicate illustrators that knew what they were doing, other pages don't quite hit the mark on perspective. From my understanding of art, this is more representative of 15th century and older works that sometimes come across as flat. Even though our definition of monsters might differ from Algivandi's, I find many of the images reminiscent of contemporary monsters, or characters in media. Perhaps because of his somewhat featureless face, the image on the left reminded me of Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th. Chewbacca from Star Wars came to mind when I saw images of human figures covered in hair. And although I'm not exactly sure what the image on the right is depicting, my mind went to Dumbo with his large ears. On this slide, I have a double-headed bird on the left that reminded me of Albania's flag, and the lion is reminiscent of the lion from the English crest. Funnily enough, this lion would have already been used in English symbolism around the time of this text. Seeing the image on the top right, I'm thinking of Thumbelina, and the bottom, the devil. The last comparison I'll include is the Birth of Venus painting. Wrapping things up, I'd like to return to the question again, what is a monster, and how does Algivandi define one? This course organizes monsters into 3 categories, the unknown, other, and the self. I find Algivandi's monsters mostly align with the other. Many of the monsters are just humans who deviate from societal norms. In some cases, Algivandi's included images of giraffes and hippopotamuses, which I would hardly describe as monsters. Reviewing this text has allowed me to reconsider my own definition of monster, and its use as a term throughout history.